All right, so world majority. I'll be honest, I had to look that one up. Big idea, right? But that's where Russia seems to be placing its bets, at least according to this report we're diving into today.
Yeah, it's a pretty bold strategy document, no question.
Bold is putting it mildly. This comes straight from Russia's Council on Foreign and Defense Policy, and it's, well, let's just say they're not mincing words about where they see the future heading. And it starts with this whole idea of the world splitting in two. They hit that point hard right out of the gate.
Yeah, they lay it out as a given, really.
Yeah.
On one side, you've got the U.S. and its allies, the usual suspects, but on the other, more than 100 countries that haven't condemned Russia's actions. Think India, China, obviously, but also places like South Africa, Brazil. We're talking about a huge chunk of the planet.
It's easy to get bogged down in the day-to-day, but this report really drives home that this isn't just about Ukraine, is it? This is a potential seismic shift we're talking about.
Exactly. This is about how Russia sees the entire global landscape rearranging itself, and it's completely changing their whole approach to global power.
Okay, so you have these two sides, but they're very careful not to just frame it as pro-West versus anti-West, which is interesting. So how do they define this other bloc?
World majority, that's their term. And what's really striking is they define this group not by what they're against, but by what they're for.
What they aspire to.
Right. It's about true sovereignty, a bigger say on the world stage, and breaking free from what they see as the West's domination in, well, pretty much everything.
And here's where it gets really fascinating. Russia doesn't just see itself as some kind of ally or partner to this world majority. They're saying they're at the core of it.
It's a fascinating argument, really. They go deep into Russian history, their cultural identity, even their capacity for enduring hardship. And they argue that these things make them uniquely suited to leading this charge, almost like they're saying, we've been down this road before, we get it in a way that others don't.
So it's more than just an alliance. It's like a shared destiny in their eyes. Which leads us to the big question. How would this world majority actually work? The report points to two key players, BRICS and the SKO.
Those are the foundations, no doubt. They see these groups as the leading edge, building alternative systems, financial, technological, that directly challenge the institutions the West has built.
Wait, are we talking about like a world where BRICS replaces the UN? That's a pretty radical shift.
They even flew the idea of BRICS as a model for a future UN. This isn't about making small changes. They're playing a long game, aiming to rewrite the rules of the global order entirely.
All right, so Russia is drawing a line in the sand, saying this is the future, this world majority. But how do you actually make that happen? It's one thing to have a vision, but turning it into reality is a different beast altogether, right?
Well, they're not just sitting around hoping for the best. The report lays out a very deliberate plan of action, and a lot of it hinges on something they call network diplomacy.
Network diplomacy, huh? That sounds a little bit buzzwordy, even for international relations.
It's about shifting away from those big, slow-moving international institutions, the ones that everyone loves to hate. They want to focus on building direct relationships with individual countries.
So less about trying to get everyone on the same page and more about finding those one-on-one connections and building from there.
Precisely. And here's where it gets even more interesting, because they actually talk about directly supporting pro-national interest groups within Western nations.
Hold on, are they talking about, like, backing political movements in the West? That seems like a whole other level of power play.
It really highlights how different their approach is. They see potential allies everywhere, even inside what we might think of as enemy territory. And they're playing a long game here, working on multiple fronts.
It's about shifting the balance of power, not just playing defense. And speaking of shifting balances, it's not just about the politics, is it? They get into some really concrete economic and technological initiatives, too.
Absolutely. And this is where their vision gets really tangible, because they're talking about a massive investment in those Russian regions that border Asia, Siberia in particular. Think new infrastructure, energy projects, the whole 9 yards.
Trying to create a new center of gravity further away from the West.
Exactly. And that's not even the half of it. Joint technology ventures, new trade routes that bypass all those traditional choke points. They even want to expand Russian language and education programs abroad. It's like
they're almost trying to build a whole separate system, aren't they?
It's ambitious, to say the least.
That's an understatement if I've ever heard one. I mean, creating a new world order, even if it's more of a parallel world order, that's no small feat.
It's a monumental undertaking, and I don't think even they would say it's going to be easy. In fact, the report itself actually acknowledges some of those potential challenges. For starters, they know this world majority It's a very diverse group.
Hmm.
And keeping everyone on the same page, navigating those internal tensions and competing interests, that's going to be a constant balancing act.
That's for sure. And something tells me the West isn't just going to sit back and watch all this unfold, right? So we've unpacked Russia's grand strategy, their roadmap to this world majority. Ambitious doesn't even begin to cover it. But the question everyone's asking has got to be, can they actually pull it off?
That's the billion ruble question, isn't it? And honestly, even the report itself seems to acknowledge that there are a lot of unknowns.
Like what? Give us the rundown.
Well, for starters, can this world majority really coalesce around a shared vision? It's an incredibly diverse group of countries, each with its own internal dynamics and, let's be honest, sometimes conflicting interests.
Holding that coalition together, that's no easy task.
Not at all. And then there's the West. You think they're just going to roll over and let go of their dominant position?
I think we can safely say that's not how this plays out.
Exactly. The West has its own deeply entrenched interests, its own institutions and alliances. This is shaping up to be a real clash of visions, a battle for the future of global power.
Okay, so bottom line, what does this all mean for, well, the rest of us, the people trying to make sense of this increasingly chaotic world?
I think this report is a wake-up call, plain and simple. It's a reminder that the world doesn't stand still. The assumptions we have about how things work, the narratives we tell ourselves, those can change.
And they are changing, whether we're ready for it or not.
Right. This report forces us to look beyond the usual headlines and grapple with a very different perspective, a perspective that sees the world from a fundamentally different vantage point. And whether or not you agree with their analysis, understanding that perspective, it's crucial for navigating the road ahead.
It's like they say, the only constant is change. And in this case, that change might just be coming with a brand new name tag, world majority. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Well, that's our deep dive into Russia's grand strategy. As always, we want to leave you with more than just information. We want to leave you with questions, with a reason to stay curious and engaged with this complex world we all share. Because who knows what the future holds? But by taking the time to really dig into these issues, by understanding the different forces at play, we're all better equipped to navigate whatever comes next.